I think that art, whether it's dance, music, especially music, you know, um, writing, all of it has power. It has a greater power than we realize. I'm originally from Ascension Parish. I was born on River Road, right across from the levee. The levee was on one side, the road, River Road, our little house, and then the train was behind us, so we were sort of closed in there. And my earliest memories are of the levee and the train passing behind us. We were living with my grandparents and a shotgun house. They had one side and my parents had the other side. One of my earliest memories was stooping down on the porch, and they had chickens, and there was this large rooster, and it was one of those roosters who, spur people. The rooster came on the porch, and I knew I was supposed to be afraid of it, but it was so beautiful. That was my first experience with color, because the rooster it was one of those red, green, kind of iridescent colors, and I was just there staring at the rooster and thinking how pretty it was. But I didn't realize that this was, my introduction to color. And I remember that as a color experience from that time in my life. My memories focus on, there was so much greenery, there was so many trees, and it was just so beautiful. We could run up the levee and run back down and play on the levee, because it was just right there in our face, and stare at the river. The creative part didn't really happen at that. We were living there for a while, and then my father bought some property on Highway 73, which was like about 10 miles away. And when we moved there, I really started just coloring and drawing pictures when we moved. And then when I went to school, I remember the teacher giving us a Valentine to color. And she oh, you color so much better than your brother. Poor thing, knocked him out of the water, but it inspired me. So he became an engineer, became an artist. When I was like in third grade, back then they did not have Office Depot or School Aid or anything. The teachers had to make everything. So they would pay me and my sister to make their posters. We would draw posters like apples, how many apples or things like that. And once one teacher had us to make a rolling TV in a box. We had to draw all these little scenes from nursery rhymes, and you could roll them and show the pictures. We drew all that, and they would pay us like $3 or $4. So that was my first job. Well, my introduction to found objects came from, we didn't have a lot, so you had to invent. Everything you wanted, you had to invent it. And so toys, like my grandfather, when he was living, he would find toys behind the levee and bring them to us. These would be old toys that the white kids threw away, and we would play with that. And but then we learned how to make things out of what was in the environment. When the Rosenwald School closed and we moved to, it was Prairieville High School, and that's where all the black kids were attending Prairieville. Dutchtown High School was like not far from our house, but we passed Dutchtown, the bus would pick us up, and we would pass Dutchtown to go to Prairieville, which was a whole nother area or city. And so every day you pass the white school and you see them, and we keep going. I often wondered, what do they do in there? What happens in there that's different from what's happening at our school? But that's about all I thought about it. Someone from the school board came to our school and talked to the class. I think it was like the 10th, 11th grade students, and informed us that that the government had passed the freedom of choice, and you could choose to go to the white school if you want to. And after his speech, he said, "Okay, how many people want to go?" And so a lot of us raised our hand. And then they said, "Okay, well, the next step is to go home and get permission from your parents to go." And So the next day we came back and they said, well, who all did you give anybody? Did your parents approve? No one of the parents approved, but mine. My dad was a civil rights person, and he was, he felt this was very important, and so I was approved to go. Nobody else was, and because their parents did not want them to go. When I got to the school, the first thing was that they would call me names. That was just a given every day. I was, call me the N-word all the time, and whenever when I entered the classroom and the teacher said, well, this is our new student, blah, blah, you sit here. And then the guy next to me, he moved his desk over, they didn't want to be, for some reason, nobody wanted to get close to me because I don't know what was the fear. But then when I go to the cafeteria to get my food and, it was like the long tables. And so when I found a table to sit at, everybody would leave. Nobody wanted to sit at the table with me. And so it was that sort of thing. I think it was more difficult for my folks than for me. My brother was older than me, and he had a job, and some guys beat him up, and then they let him, the owner told him they had to let him go because of me, Then it got to the point where there were threats. So Daddy and my brother would sit up at night and take turns at the window with the gun, watching. One night, it was my brother's turn, and he yelled, "Daddy, Daddy!" So Daddy ran down the hall because Daddy was taking his little nap. People were in the yard. And they lit up a cross, they burned the cross in the yard. And it was like bright, orange, just thing on fire, It was a big thing, a big cross. It was very weird. And so Daddy and them shot, because they couldn't see the people, so they were just shooting into the, out there, and the people ran. We heard the trucks leave. Another time they were planning to bomb the house, and so, things like that. So it was this constant pressure the whole idea was to scare us and make me and Daddy change our mind, and for me to quit the school. Daddy asked if I wanted to quit, and I said, no, I'm gonna stay. Because, first of all, the plus sides of it was that, like, at recess, I didn't have people to play with, talk to. So usually I would sit in the library. They had a big library, much bigger than the one I was used to, and they had art books, and they had Johnson's History of Art. And so during recess, I would just look at because I'd never seen that before. And then they had art class. I'd never had art class before. So why give up, all this good stuff for those, those crazy people? I went to LSU. I took art classes, and it was so much fun. And that was when I decided, this is something that's not work. And I love doing this. So I just decided this was what I wanted to do, because it was the pleasure of it. There was no feeling that I'm working. There's just this wonderful feeling of just creating and creating. I used to tell stories when we were little. We entertained ourselves, and so we would be under the table, and I would tell my stories, and they would listen and laugh, and and I didn't, it was just something to do for fun. And then when I was at LSU, I had a real hard time with English. I flunked English once, I think maybe twice, but I had trouble with spelling. I had trouble with grammar, all of that. And so I said, well, I can't be a writer, forget that. And but I continued to write. And I met people who liked my writing. I started writing for Black Collegiate, which was a magazine for Black college students. I was doing that while I was in college. And I would send poems to other, small magazines, and they would publish it. So And at the time, I would read poetry in college too. I went through a strange phase because when I was at LSU, I never forget, a defining moment for me was they invited all of the new students to come to a breakfast at the Baptist Student Union. And I said, I invited my friends. I said, they're gonna have breakfast, and then we're gonna go eat at a different church. It's gonna be so much fun. I was so excited. And so we went. The director of the Baptist Student Union called me aside, and he said, well, Malaika, I'm sorry, but you can't go to these churches. They haven't decided to seat Black people, so you can't go. There's only one church you can go to, and that's University Baptist. So I suggest y'all go to that. That was like, what's wrong with these people? I really got angry with God. I got angry with the church because I couldn't understand, the double standards. So all of that kind of informed, where I was. I was writing poetry, but then my poetry, I just started cursing, every other word was a curse word. And when I when I read my poetry, it was like I just cursed everybody out. And so for a good period, my poems were very negative. I continued with the very militant poetry, read it a lot at different events, and gradually, kind of toned it down, but it was always like reactions to what was happening in the community. I would speak at the Free Speech Alley and talk about, my views and so forth. Art is more subjective and more abstract, but, the words can really express that frustration. So even today, when I'm experiencing or when I'm seeing different things happening to Black people or to Asian people or to anybody, it's painful, and that this is wrong. And it brings me back to when I was in high school, and I'm thinking, these people are really ignorant. It was ignorance. It was pure ignorance. This one is called Keep Silent. And this is about women being asked to not speak up, to don't say what's happening to you. Don't say anything. Just be quiet. Everything will be all right. And I've experienced this all my life. People say, well, just be quiet. You don't have to say anything. But if you don't say anything, no one will ever know that you're hurting and that something is wrong. And so this is what I was trying to say in this painting, that and you notice the American flag stamps are over her lips, because this is America. And here in America, they're telling us, keep silent. We're not a country where women are supposed to be oppressed, but yet we are oppressed with this concept that you're not to say anything. So that's what this is about, and that's the story I was working on. So for a while I was, I looked at Gauguin, studied Gauguin, I studied Matisse because I like his use of colors, studied Picasso, but then I got to the point where I didn't want to look like them. I wanted to be me. So I looked at Romare Bearden, studied his work. I liked his work because he was doing collages, and I liked what he was doing. And I started looking at at Black artists and getting some inspiration from them as well. But at the same time, I was still trying to get away from being like anybody. I wanted to be like me. And this is Made in America, and the whole idea that the whole thing of the prejudice against different cultures. And we're all made in America, and so that's why I have the stamps here and some of the just different people who were on the stamps, because we were all we're all birthed here. This is our lives, this is our country. So that's what I was trying to portray here, and that the women are not one particular color, but they're like different colors because it represents different parts of our cultural heritage. So that was the comment I was trying to make in this painting. The process of art, anybody can, you write about it, you talk about it, but it's not as important as the original source of it. Where's the mine that this came from? Where is the gold mine that you dug up and you found all this stuff? That to me is the most important thing. All my stories have a genesis in something that I remember, from growing up, or something mom and them told me. There's a gold mine that you're forgetting. And that gold mine is the life that people lived and the experiences they have.